Hey guys, happy Tuesday. Evelyn here, hopping on live today. Let's see here. Let me see if I can make sure I go live too. I'm live streaming on Instagram as well. But all right, so on Sunday, Pastor Kevin was sharing an amazing message over at Fincastle Baptist Church over in 10. And I was like, oh my goodness, it was on the book of Habakkuk. Okay. And I was like, this is so good. I totally have to share this with my followers. So, wow, the Lord has been speaking to me through this book this week. And if you have ever had questions, like big questions, about why God allows certain things to happen or where is He, right? In like the middle of chaos, today's message is for you. Before we dive in, though, if you're watching live or you're catching the replay, drop the word RISE, RISE, in the comments, because today we're going to choose to rise in faith. And even when we don't have all the answers. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So Habakkuk, all right, Habakkuk is a book that I have never read in my entire life. And I do remember that Habakkuk was one of the books of the Bible when I was little. We were in children's church and we were learning all of the books of the Bible and memorizing. There's a song. I do remember Habakkuk. But in my notes, I wrote to my husband, I was like, yeah, I have never read this book before. So it was really cool to see what all was in it and how it's so for today, right? So let's talk about this book of Habakkuk for a little bit. Okay, so Habakkuk was a prophet. And he was there during a time when there was a lot of evil happening, okay? Just a lot of things happening. And the cool thing about him is he wasn't afraid to wrestle with God about it. And so he was looking around and he was just seeing a lot of injustice, a lot of evil, a lot of suffering for his own people, right? And he was saying, God, why are you letting this happen? Why aren't you doing something about it? Can anyone relate? I know I've caught myself even asking, after things that happen, in our nation, even 9/11, right? I just remember sitting there thinking, wow, why did you allow this to happen? And the cool thing is that God never minds our question. He never minds our questions. He actually loves it when we approach him and we ask him questions. We don't have to understand it all, but he just loves it when we communicate with him, when we commune with him, when we spend time with him, when we talk to him, when we ask him and bring him our questions. He would rather us come to him with all of our questions than us to run away from him, right? And so anyway, I remember friends back then asking me why. I understand why evil, things happen to people, evil doers, okay, they deserve it, they saw it coming, but why do bad things ever happen to good people? That was the question that I remember being asked. And I felt so much sorrow, because I didn't know the answers. I just remember that. Well, Habakkuk was in that time of his life where he had all these questions. But the cool thing about him is that he wasn't afraid to wrestle with God on those questions, right? So he asked those questions why aren't you doing something about this, right? So most of us, we have questions. When we have these questions, sometimes and we don't have an easy answer, we have seen in the Bible one or two things happen. Either you know, you're tempted to deny your faith, oh, forget this. This is just not going to work, right? Or we deny our questions. Forget it. This is an unholy question. We're not even going to go there. We shouldn't even be asking these questions. We feel guilt or ooh, gosh, I shouldn't, there's something wrong. And Habakkuk shows us something different. He wrestled while he embraced what was happening. So he didn't turn away. He actually chose to lean in. Think about this. Even we as entrepreneurs, or even we as moms, um, when things get going hard, it's easy to say, or like, we start something new, right? And things get going hard. We say, oh, that must not be for me. God must not want this for me, because it becomes hard, because it takes more energy, or it takes time away from like the family. And so you begin thinking, oh, God must not want this for me. And it's so easy for us to do that. And as a matter of fact, it's just kind of like we take it as a sign. But what I like, what we see just exemplified through Habakkuk is he didn't turn away from the difficult questions. He actually leaned in and turned to God and asked him, and he wrestled with him, and he wasn't afraid to wrestle. At the same time, he was embracing God's sovereignty. He was embracing that, okay, this is difficult, but I trust you above all things, and I can do hard things in you. He leaned in, and he didn't just like write it off, right? So God's answer to him was actually, I'm already at work. My ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your ways. Like, I know I'm already doing, like, I already know the end result, and I've already working, even if you can't see it, even if it doesn't make sense. So even when God was moving, it might completely look the opposite of what Habakkuk had hoped for, right? And that, isn't that so true in our life, even as an entrepreneur or as a mom, right? We might question, and we're like, oh, we might, that might not be for me. But when we choose to lean in, actually we begin to see things that are beginning to develop in us, and growth on a personal level. We learn new skills, we learn new things, and that feels so good, right? That we can turn around and teach somebody else, because we've been implementing it in our life, right? And then our skills develop. Like, it is not a bad thing, right? But when we choose to lean in, we actually begin to embrace what all God might have for us in that. It might not be exactly what you had intended for it to look like, right? Or hoped for, but God knows bigger. He knows higher. So sometimes God uses the unexpected, even people or situations that just doesn't seem just, to bring correction, to realign his people, to grow a skill in us so that we can be ready to be impactful for somebody else. So sometimes we go through things, and next thing you know, somebody else is going through the same thing. And because you've gone through it, you're able to help them, right? And so it fulfills a bigger purpose that we can't yet see in the moment. And yes, that's hard to understand. But I love that in the book of Habakkuk, he models that for us. Like, the righteous will live by faith. He chose to live by faith. And I think that's just really cool. All right. Now, this is the part that really made us laugh in church when Pastor Kevin was going over this. But I was like, how in the world? Okay, I'm not a big theologian whatsoever, but this made sense to me. I love this. Okay. All right. So he was talking about that, when we have these questions, when we have questions that we don't know the answers to, and maybe the answers are just super hard and they're just not easy, right? And you've been waiting, and there's things that we can do, and how we embrace it. How do we lean in? Okay, so how do we lean in? And this is the beautiful part. So Habakkuk didn't stay stuck in confusion. He leaned in. He moved from questioning to, here's the things, to worshiping. So from questioning to worshiping. And he chose, and this is in Habakkuk, okay, in the book of Habakkuk, look it up. Okay, this is what I'm saying. I'm not cursing here, but he said that he chose to Shigionoth. Say that. Try saying that like 100 times, okay? I'm gonna be careful because I don't want to curse. I don't want to say something else. Shigianath. He chose to Shigianath. Shigianath. Okay. It means to express confidence through um, through heartfelt worship and prayer in times of uncertainty. So, what should we do? How should we worship? We should Shigianath. So, we should choose to lean in by expressing that confidence of like, okay, I'm gonna choose to lean in here by worship, by prayer, even if it's uncertain for me. Okay. And there's a lot of ways that we can worship. Worship can be a form of music, a song, right? It could be sung with a lot of passion, with a high tempo, rapid tempo. It could also be a cry of just adoration and unwavering trust. It could also be a rapid cry from the heart. It could be praise punctuated with exclamation marks. Like this is what it all means. It's a very rare term to Shigianoth, okay? Used in only in cases of complete reliance of God's faithfulness. So we can worship through prayer, we can worship by giving, right? We can worship by even the time that you spend with your husband and with your children. Like there's so many times we worship in waiting, in that waiting time, because we choose to lean in and we're just in so much confidence. And that's what Shigianoth means. So we can do that. The other thing that we can do is we can choose to Selah. Selah. Selah is another word in Habakkuk, and it means to stop and remember. So we can also choose to pause and to reflect and to remember who God is. Like, let's remember what He has done, right? And when we choose to do that and we choose to praise Him for what He has done, He's already done it, right? Like, we know the end. Like, He defeated death, He defeated the darkness and all the evil in the world, right? He's already done that. But in the moment, right now, where we're living, sometimes it's hard to remember that. But when we choose to lean in, we actually choose to stop and reflect. We can do that and think about those things, right? And that's the part about reframing our mind, right? I speak a lot about the reticular activating system in our brain, and that part of our brain that what we choose to think upon we draw more of, because it's a form of energy. And so that reframing can look like Salah: pause, reflect, remember who God is. And that's gratitude. Right? And so I just want to invite you to do that today. I've been thinking a lot about what it means, to live out of overflow and out of abundance instead of hustling and just striving, feeling like you're behind and leaving you just overwhelmed and in full chaos, right? We don't want that, because when we choose to worship, when we choose to Shigianoth and to Salah, so when we choose to express confidence through worship and prayer and giving, and when we choose to Salah, like show up, like um, turn to a perspective of gratitude for where we are, right, in life right now, what we do have, then what we end up doing is our striving turns into a state of calmness. Isn't that beautiful? Just that state of calmness, where we can rise above the chaos and the overwhelm and the clutter and just all the things that are just happening. And it is such a beautiful place to be. So that's also where our confusion, it begins to turn into clarity. God gives us clarity. And that exhaustion where we're just feeling like we're just running on fumes, like I can't take it anymore, right? It turns into energy that begins to draw the goodness of God, the goodness of the situation. It might not look at it, but it's like that half. that glass halfway full. It's either halfway empty or halfway full. And it's what part do we choose to place our thoughts in? And that's an energy because we will draw more of that. And so I just want to encourage the listener, the follower who might be watching today and just like, man, it just feels like one thing after another. Like I cannot get a break. It just feels like as soon as I get through one issue, there's another one coming. And I just want to encourage you. I just want to speak to that woman today, that person who is just like feeling like I feel so exhausted, so tired. My heart is hurting. My heart is just so full because I can't seem to get out of this. And it just seems like one bad thing after another. Like, when is it? When am I going to breathe? When am I going to get through this? And if that's you today, I just want to encourage you, you know, that just like Habakkuk, he didn't have all the answers, but he got God himself. Like sometimes the answer to the why is who is a who, and who is Christ, right? He gives us hope, and we don't have to know all the answers. But I also want to encourage you to reframe that thought from, man, it just seems like one thing after another. I can't get a break out of it. I can't get out of it. It just seems like one bad thing after another just falls. Reframe that to what can you be grateful for in that moment? Like, where, think about the good things even in that craziness. And if you can't think of one, just being in America, you guys, after being in Guatemala and watching those children and that family live the way they lived, just the fact that we have a place of, with AC. And if your AC just broke, you're just like, oh my goodness, my water, or it just seems like I have this expense or this expense. Like, you have your family, you have the love. And if your family's not there with you and you're finding yourself alone, just remember you have a place over your head, you have a bed you can sleep on. Just start thinking about that. Maybe you don't have to worry about the next meal that's going to come. And maybe you're just like, yes, I'm poor. I have no dime to my name. And you're just like, okay. So I encourage you to start looking for the goodness, because I bet you will find it. And the more you start thinking on the goodness and the less you start thinking about, man, when am I going to get a break? I promise you that will draw the type of goodness that you're looking for. It is just energy. And I love that. And so here's my question for you. What's one area in your life where you're asking God for clarity right now? Drop it in the comments or just whisper it to him right where you're at. And if this word, like if this just message resonated with you, comment rise, because together we are rising into faith and worship and overflow. And that's what my mission and vision is all about, helping women move from the burnout to the bold, from the striving to the overflow, from questioning to worship, and actually rising up to prepare our bodies and our mind and our hearts and our homes, for what is about to come. Because I'm telling you, there is something that is around the horizon, and God is calling us to rise above and prepare our homes, prepare our minds, and prepare our bodies for what's to come. And I can't wait. I want to be a part of it. I know I want to be a part of it. And if you're ready to be a part of it, comment rise, because there's just something good coming. Okay, thank you for being here today. Keep wrestling while embracing. Keep shiggyanathing and salah. And until next time, stay aligned and anchored with Jesus in the center. Talk to you later. Bye.